Who's next? Yeah, please. Excuse me, sit down. You weren't called. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Go ahead. No, you don't. You haven't been called. Go back to Univision.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining us now is a man who has run many a press conference in his day. Former White House spokesman for President George W. Bush and president of Fleischer Sports is Ari Fleischer. Hello, sir.
Good to be with you.
Good to have you, as always. All right, so, I'm no expert in this, but I maintain that Ramos was out of line. I mean, you got to wait till you're called on. You can't just stand up and make a speech and insist I have a right to ask you questions because you want to deport people?
Steve, if Bill O'Reilly showed up at a White House press conference and without being called on, he stood up and started to harangue President Obama about O'Reilly's point of view about a certain issue, the media would go crazy. They would be excoriating O'Reilly for his rude behavior, defending President Obama. And you notice they didn't do that here. He was out of line in what he did to Trump, and I'm no Trump fan. But the job of reporters is not to turn themselves into newsmakers so they can give their point of view. That is not the job of a reporter.
Yeah. So you think Trump, handled it well, or?
I do. I think Trump handled it just fine. I wouldn't have removed him unless it was absolutely unavoidable. What you try to do in a situation like that is marginalize him. But I think that the other reporters weren't going to go along with that. They were going to defend Ramos, and so Trump, in essence, had no choice. And then he did the smart thing in letting him back in. He read the room right.
Right.
But it still is inappropriate. It's wrong behavior by reporters who are crusading to be celebrities as opposed to being journalists asking questions when they get called on. But again, it's a double standard in the way these things are treated. The press really came down as if this is a problem for Trump. But if the shoe was on the other foot, they would say it was inappropriate for a conservative reporter to do that to the president or Hillary or anybody else.
All right, you mentioned you're no fan of Trump, and that's been, I think, established. We've had John before about this, but here we are. It's the end of August. I know it's a long way away. However, this could no longer be analogous to, Michelle Bachmann led in the polls and what's his name? I forget his name.
You can name it, Herman Cain.
Yeah, Herman Cain. I'm sorry.
Perry,
yeah,
everybody has
he's been leading in the polls from the get-go, and today the latest to Quinnipiac has him at 28%, more than double his next opponent, which is Ben Carson, and Jeb Bush is at 7%. Why and when, in your view, will this all change?
Well, I originally thought that his act would wear thin, and I still think it will. It's just a question of time. But I think what you have also here is the protest signal phase of the Republican primary, where people know that they're not voting yet, but they're sending a real message that they really do want fundamental change. They want people to take on their problems, and they want people to speak straight. And that's, I think, what you're picking up here, above and beyond the historical anti-establishment vote that's always been a part of a Republican primary.
All right. And on the other side, you think Biden gets in?
If I were Joe Biden, I would continue to wait a little bit longer. He's got to let some of these polls really sink in over a period of months. And that's going to create pressure because it's going to make it very late for him to get in. But the Democrats aren't going to ditch Hillary over just a few polls showing that she's in trouble and maybe she can't win. But if there's months of polls, then the Democrats are going to start to say, we cannot put all our eggs in the Hillary basket. But here's the other kicker, Steve. If you're Hillary, you might actually want Biden in because the more candidates against you, the more they divide the anti-Hillary vote, and she can win with the plurality.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. All right, let me ask you about this knee-jerk reaction by Hillary, and especially by the governor of Virginia, who came out just an hour or so after the shooting, blamed it on guns, and then didn't, when he was pressed, and that's that original statement on the radio, didn't know that the shooter had passed a background check. So, I mean, this rush to blame guns and politicize this, where do you stand? How do you feel about that?
Every time there's a human tragedy like this, the Democrats try to use it to make an ideological point about the Second Amendment, and they need to stop doing it because they lose the public on it, and it's the wrong focus. The focus is on mental illness. And it's just distressing that every time one of these comes up, that's the first knee-jerk reaction from the Democrats because it won't solve the problem.
Yeah, no, and far, like I said earlier in the show, far be it from me, God forbid we can't put our place in and don't want to in the shoes of that father of the girl who was killed, the reporter. But this morning, I mean, he's calling the NRA names. And again, he took a background check and he passed it. I mean, it just you know,
it's
I
a
can't
knee-jerk
figure that
reaction,
out.
isn't it? It's just the reaction anytime there's a shooting.
Yeah. All right, Ari, it is always good to. Oh, you know what I want to talk to you about before I let you go? I want to talk to you about the Yankees and A-Rod. So A-Rod who started, we got 30 seconds. He started so quickly, and now age is catching up to him. Is that it?
Well, you know, everybody gets hot, everybody gets cold, and he's been a sustained cold period. But so have the Yankees, heart of the order, the 3 and 4 hitters, and that's one of the reasons the Yankees have been slumping recently. But A-Rod, big part of it.
Yeah, and I you know, for your sake, I mean, I'm rooting for the Mets because I think they're a great story, and I just love the young arms, and I love everything that's going on. And for your sake, though, I hope that if the Yankees don't make it, the Mets don't make it, because I know you'll be very hard to deal with. Ari Fleischer, as always, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Steve.